thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and see everybody and participate in this event and then the competition after this. We're going to give you a little bit of a taste of what we do. We thought it might be useful for everybody to get a real world look at how we apply a lot of the things you're learning in school and kind of practicing your skills on how we apply them, and actually we're building our own skills as a company as we work with retailers and the industry. So we'll give you a little bit of background and kind of on our company, what our goals are, our vision for my area, and then Chris will come up and talk a little bit more specifically about how we're building our capabilities around big data and advanced analytics with our retailers. So ConAgra, how many people have heard of ConAgra before I actually showed up today? How many of you aren't part of the competition that have heard of ConAgra before that piece? A lot of you, wow. Okay, that's a lot. That's surprising. And it's so fun. I worked my whole career for PepsiCo, about 23 years for them before switching to ConAgra. Had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me, convinced me to switch. I had to tell my family, they didn't even know who the company was. My wife had never heard of them before. And ConAgra is an interesting old company. Started in 1919 in Nebraska, really in the milling industry, so milling flours and wheat and really raw agricultural products of that piece. Company's headquartered in Omaha, Nebraska, which is kind of in the middle of farmland country. The good news is that the bulk of our office is for sales and marketing are in Chicago. So we just flew down last night, came from Chicago. We're in Naperville, right outside the suburbs there. I spent the last 10 years, though, living right here in Frisco, Texas, up the road. Our CEO, Gary Rodkin, actually worked with me at PepsiCo. So him and I had worked together. He was the head of Tropicana there when I was there and head of PepsiCo North America before joining ConAgra. We just purchased another company called Rawcorp. Rawcorp is the largest private label food manufacturer in the United States, about a $5 billion company. We're right now in the process, I've been working the last few months on how we integrate that into the rest of our company. Strangely enough, these pretzels that are up here are made by us. They're private label, they're Kroger branded pretzels. I don't think anybody planned that intentionally, but it kind of worked out all right. But those are our pretzels. We make a good portion of all the private label cereal, snacks, frozen waffles, candy in the store, in the grocery stores. We make it for not just Kroger, but for Costco, Walmart, everybody on that piece. The reason a lot of people don't know the ConAgra name is it's really an amalgamation of a lot of other brands. So a lot of these other brands, I'm sure you've probably heard at different times, whether it's Banquet or Marie Callender's or Orville Redenbacher popcorn, Ready Whip, Swiss Miss. I mean, we make lots of different brands. We're in over 81 categories in the grocery store, so more than any other single company. Nestle's second with 71 categories. So pretty much every aisle you walk down when you're in the store shopping has one of these products on that piece. We also have a pretty large commercial division. The commercial division focuses on selling to other businesses. So we do a lot of, so for McDonald's, you think about it, a lot of you probably have seen McDonald's, they're everywhere in the world. We make all their French fries, their pancakes, their biscuits, their syrups for that company. So it's not sold under our brands or our names, but they sell it as part of their products. So a pretty diverse group of categories. It makes it challenging for us as a company. I had the luxury when I worked for PepsiCo, we were pretty much focused on beverage and then snacks with Frito-Lay. Two big categories, but it gave you a lot of direction of what you were doing every day. We came here, and the challenge is we're in everything. So we've really got to be selective, and that's where a lot of the analytics comes into play for us, is how do we find the right opportunities? How do we find the right places to spend our time that we make sure the company gets a return on the investment of our time and efforts? Some fun facts about the company. 99% of the households in the United States buy our products. We're primarily a US-based company. Probably about 90% of our sales are domestic, about 10% overseas. The countries we're pretty big in are India, Mexico, and Canada, under different brands in different countries kind of on that piece. Some of the same ones, but also some other local ones on that piece. A lot of our businesses are pretty old. The Van Camp's bean business is 1861, so quite a long heritage. A lot of our brands are 100 plus years old. We bought from other companies and acquired throughout the years. Private label piece I already mentioned. The private label piece is we think a neat opportunity as a company. It's the fastest growing segment of the U.S. business across CPG products on that piece, growing anywhere from 4 or 5%, with most foods about flat. The U.S. is not very developed on private label products either. The U.S. has about a 25% share of the business on private brands. You go to other places like Western Europe, it's 40 or 45%. So we think there's a lot of upside in acquiring this business and integrating it into our ConAgra portfolio. About 2 years ago, the company set out, we did a big project with McKinsey to help redesign and reorganize the company and get focused on some new areas. And they helped us kind of put together a strategic plan we call Customer Connect. And we went out and talked to our different customers of, hey, what do you want us to focus on? We're a big company, but we're not maybe best in class, or we're not considered maybe the same as a P&G or a Kraft Foods, or even a PepsiCo would be. So we ask the customers is, what are the areas you think we should be investing in? How should we be helping you grow your business, and in turn, hopefully grow our business with that? So we put together a plan based on the feedback they gave us, and we call it a Customer Connect. It was really about how do we build a longer partnership with key customers that are growing across the business on that piece. And then the other things they told us is, hey, we need you guys to invest in areas that frankly we don't have our own capabilities on, we could really use more help on. Two of them were insights and then analytics. Our customers have been out there, they've had lots of data for a long time, and we'll talk about some of what we're doing with their data, but they haven't spent a whole bunch of time really digging into it and understanding that piece. So they were looking for expertise from companies like ours to come in, teach their folks on how to use this information, and hopefully make better decisions with it. And then for us, it's been out, how do we actually implement this piece with the industry? So how do we go out there and do best-in-class pricing? How do we take these analytics and make sure we got the right products in the right stores? So this is our vision for my team. So I had about a team of about 130 insights professionals. So everything from analytics like Chris and Tim to other people that do shopper research and primary research out talking to people in stores, and another group that does category management on that piece. The vision's the same for all of us, is how do we become that indispensable partner with our customers? And what that means to me, so I'm not a salesperson per se when I call them. We've got great sales folks that sell things to our customers. I need to be bringing additional value, and my team needs to be bringing additional value to our customers where they see it, hey, they've got a problem with salty snacks, or they've got a problem with frozen meals. The company they think of first to call with that issue or problem is ConAgra. So they want assistance, advice. That's where our team comes in. We almost want to view ourselves as a consultant with the customer. So we'll make recommendations, not just on, hey, you need to add 5 of our healthy choice items, but hey, you need to add 3 leaf cuisines from Nestle also. So we try to pride ourselves on being objective and giving them recommendations that will grow their entire store, not just our products. Now, in the same term, we're not the Salvation Army, we're not charity either. I mean, our goal is to drive the bottom line. We have shareholders to account for. We think and believe as a company, if we help them grow their store, that we'll win from that piece. And even if it's just the ties, at the end of the day, they come down to, hey, I have 2 promotions to run in last week's Thanksgiving ad. We make pies, Marie Callender pies. There's also a couple of other companies that make pies. And they come down to, if we do a good job servicing their needs and growing their total business, we'll hopefully get those ties and we'll get the ad with them for that product. So these are the 3 areas I'm responsible for on the team. So I mentioned them a little bit earlier. Shopper insights for us is really understanding the different behaviors that exist in the store. So why do people buy? How do they shop? How do they shop across channels? What are the motivations and needs around that piece? We do a lot of research around occasions. So understanding what people do around breakfast. How do they actually put together dinner? How much time do they spend? How do they shop in different seasons of the year? We think these key learnings and understandings help us build better programs if we understand what shoppers need when they come into the store. Analytics is what we're here to talk to you about today. Analytics are really how do we take and manage and harness all this huge amounts of information that are out there. We've got panel data on shopper behavior across channels. We've got customer data. We've had several customers sharing with us all their raw data of their loyalty cards. How do we use that data to really meaningfully understand what people are doing and then hopefully influence our customers to make better decisions based on what we think people will do in the future, what they might buy, how they might shop. We're working on several big projects with customers on how they lay their store out, how do they manage their ads, and lots of big picture type things that we think the analytics can really power them in a way that you couldn't have done 10 years ago. And then category leadership. Category leadership is our version of what we call in the industry category management. That's how do we help our customers manage the assortment on the shelf, how they actually put it on the shelf, how do they promote it, and how do they price it. So the very basics of when you walk in that store, what do you see and how do you make a decision as a shopper. We spend a lot of time, probably about 2/3 of my team are on that right bucket, and the other 1/3 are split across the other 2. So we've got more people. And those folks in category leadership and shopper insights, some of them are headquarters based in Chicago and Omaha with us, but a lot of them are out there in the different locations with the customer. I've got 30 folks in Bentonville, Arkansas, working with a pretty large customer that happens to be headquartered there. So it's more about understanding the customer and really building that local relationship. We think that one of the big things that we learned when we work with McKinsey on this piece, we think the analytics, so shopper insights and category management have been around for 10 or 20 years, and I've worked on that most of my career in that piece. We think the analytics is a new emerging space. The shopper data that's out there right now, and the loyalty card data isn't new, but most of our customers, if you talk to them, they use it strictly to manage pricing. It's a promotion vehicle. So when you go in, you'll get 10 cents off on a can of tomatoes if you give them your little loyalty card here at Kroger, for example, in the Dallas market. And that's really the extent of what they do. Some of them are smarter. I'd say Kroger's probably smarter than most. They use it to target different coupons to different households and things like that. But the bulk of our customers we work with don't do very much with it other than managing and rolling up their sales numbers, and they understand what they sold yesterday and how much money they made. They don't really understand the behavior in the store. They don't really understand how to predict that going forward. And we think an investment in this area will set our company apart, but also help our customers make better decisions and grow our business in new ways. We'll look at everything from pricing. Pricing is probably more of a disciplined approach. We've got a whole team under Chris that looks at pricing analysis, elasticities on key products. As a company, we weren't probably real disciplined in this area 5 years ago, but then when the commodities started to change, we were under a lot of pressure all of a sudden. We don't want to raise prices. We don't know where to raise prices on even, and they're not the same in every category. Your likelihood maybe to buy an oil with a 10% increase might be different than it is to buy a popcorn item. So how do we understand those differences, and how do we make good decisions with our customers and give them good advice on how to change pricing in the stores to maximize profit? The other one is we see a lot of this team does is understanding kind of what's going on out there. There's lots of hypotheses that our sales and marketing friends have about what works and what doesn't work. We like to put the analytics and the facts behind them. A lot of folks in this time in the marketing department say, hey, we want to put these beautiful decorations above the section that shows you that if it's for snacks, all the different types of snacks, and shows people eating them and having parties on that piece. We think that looks so beautiful. Our job is to figure out, well, is that really worth our time or not? If we spend $5,000 per store, do we get the return on investment based on shopper behavior to spend that investment? So a lot of times Chris will call it this myth-busting piece. It's going out there and proving something that maybe people have assumed, but really don't have the facts behind it. So we do a lot of work around that. A lot of stuff we've done in the last few years around the economy and gas prices. We like to understand is, hey, our category sales are down, our customers not doing well. Everybody's read about Walmart. Their sales have been more challenged in recent years. Is it because of the economy? Is it because of gas prices? Is it because of competition? Nobody really knows. So that's our job to figure out what is going on behind that piece. How do we help tell them, hey, it's not about your pricing. People love your pricing. It really is about you don't have the right size store anymore. You've got to build smaller stores. The analytics help answer the questions that are out there in the industry that, if not answered, you can go down a totally wrong path and make changes that really don't make sense. And then I'm really helping our customers analyze this data to more of a granular level. So how do we figure out the optimal assortment in a category using analytics and modeling in that piece? How do we look at an ad and manage an ad in terms of promotional pricing? What are the right products to group together in an ad or in a shelf on the store? Tim and I were just working on this afternoon looking at what's the optimal way to lay out a customer's entire store. So how do you put the right sections next to each other to optimize real behavior that really exists to grow sales? So neat stuff. All this area, I tell you, 5 years ago, I wasn't working on any of this. This is all pretty new space on this piece. Even when I was with PepsiCo, we were just starting to talk about this piece. We think in the next 5 to 10 years, and this should be good news for everybody that's hopefully working in analytics, we think the customers are going to get through this in a big way. Retail industry is enormous across the world on that piece. There's lots of data and information to work with. We think there will be lots of demand from them, either hiring their own folks. Walmart's gone out and hired 15 of their own folks to do analytics that we'll partner with on that piece. So we think this is the changing thing, the evolving thing in the industry that we can make a name for ConAgra and for our business. The opportunity for us is this big data piece. So this is what a little bit specifically we'll talk about with Chris today, and the competition. We've shared a slice of our big data set with that piece. Our customers, believe it or not, even though they've had this data for 10 or 15 years, the technology's just gotten good enough with the computing power to really start to manage it and extract it in ways they couldn't do just a couple of years ago. And running a query that I think Tim and I have been working together 4 or 5 years, a query that used to take a day to run, or overnight, and hope it didn't crash during the middle of the night, now can run in 10 minutes on that piece. So it's changing what we can do around this space. It's changing the insights we can develop in a timely manner on that piece. And you can do a lot more experimentation, looking for a hypothesis you don't know exists. Before, if you went down the path in the wrong path, you wasted 2 days. Now we can do it in a half hour and say, hey, this isn't going anywhere. Let's shift gears on what we're doing. The other thing, too, is we don't have to work through any data vendors. So our customers that are sharing this data, we're not paying a penny for the data from them. They're giving it to us with the hope. The only thing we owe them in payment is some great insights to help drive their business. Now, if we don't deliver that, guess what? They won't be giving us any data in the future again on that piece. So the challenge for us is to deliver value to them that they see meaningful in growing their business across the entire store. And we believe, I certainly have a big part of my team that does primary research, and that's good. I think real behavior is what's important. Real behavior is what's in the data. That's what people really do. Not what they say they do, not what they claim to do. That's what they really do. And I'm a firm believer, maybe I'm a little bit old school in this piece, I'm a firm believer that you need to understand what they do first before you go and ask them questions of why they did it, versus going out there and boiling the ocean and doing a survey in that piece. So I think starting with the data, is the heart of everything we do, and then we can layer in our other skills on top of that piece. And for us, it's a new way to engage our customers. Customers haven't got a lot of attention. Other companies haven't invested as heavily as we have in this piece. We've got 14 or 15 dedicated people in this space, and really my whole team touches this in some form or fashion on this piece. Our competition isn't doing that. They're not out talking about these new different things, these new technologies. They're not giving advice beyond their category and product. At the end of the day, our customers only have so much time in the day, especially at the senior executive level at a Walmart or a Kroger. They're going to invest their mind share and time with a handful of companies, maybe 4 or 5, that they'll give the extra value with. If we can be one of those companies, we know we can grow our business. We know we can influence their decision in ways we've never done before. So this is the fun part of the presentation where I'm going to hand over to Chris. So Chris is more of a traditional analytics background and market research. He's probably more the heavy-duty scientist guy, a little bit like this kid on the lower right. I'm more of the guiding the ship down the different parts of the ocean, making sure we're heading in the right direction on that piece. So with that, Chris, can you take us through some of your data speak?
That's the last time I let you edit a presentation without me. Okay, so I'm going to talk about starting the journey for us. So we started this journey on the path of big data. It's been almost a year now. And I like this picture because I think it's very accurate, you know, as starting out, looking out over the horizon, just getting started, a little kid. I would say now we're probably a few steps forward, maybe a little bit taller, but we're still very much at the beginning of our journey. We really had to start thinking before anything, like how do we want to do this and what capabilities do we need to build? So, you know, first of all, what are the people that we're going to have to do this work? There's a lot of options with that. How do we partner with our IT group? And it was probably pretty timely when we started thinking about big data. We went to our IT group and it's like, hey, we've heard of this big data thing. We're trying to figure out what to do too. So let's partner on that. So that was critical. Then figuring out the right technology and then executing it, and then also talk about, you know, what we have in terms of our roadmap and what we see as the road ahead for big data at ConAgra. So what is big data to us? There's a lot of different definitions of big data. Probably big data to one company might not be big data to another company. But for us, big data is primarily what's on this page. And the biggest thing are these frequent shopper data sets, these multi-terabyte data sets that retailers have, and for the most part haven't really leveraged that much. And these are data sets that are so big it would break the traditional tools that we have to work with, right? We're not going to drop this to Excel. We're not going to drop this probably into, you know, just straight SAS on our desktop because it would just blow up. But that's really where the opportunity are, these huge data sets and real shopper behavior. We also have now, working with one of our vendors, we actually purchased all the disaggregated transaction level panel data. So Nielsen and IRI have their own panelists, about 100,000 people. And so we actually buy that disaggregated data from them. It's similar to like the frequent shopper data, except it's across all retailers. So it's great because it's more comprehensive, but there's a trade-off in that the sample sizes get small retailer level, which is why we can do so much with the frequent shopper data that we can't do with that. Then we also get store-level data for key retailers we've never had before. We used to have to pay a vendor for that. That's new. And then social media, certainly that's a huge component of big data. We actually have a separate group within ConAgra who works with that social media, and they have an agency that helps them with that. That's not actually directly part of our group, but we do work with that in ConAgra, mainly listening to consumers, knowing what the buzz is, and then responding when appropriate. So what are we doing? What are some of the possibilities? So the first things we're doing are store layouts. We've actually done quite a bit of store layout work. We have a retailer who just very recently gave us their multi-terabytes of data, and some of their first questions around, hey, how do I organize the frozen section? Then, hey, how do I organize the whole store as they think about expanding their stores? So based on what we call the affinities and the market basket data and what people buy together, we're able to advise them on the layout. It used to be probably, 10, 20 years ago, they wanted to put, milk in one corner of the store and, bread in another corner of the store and make you walk around the store. But consumers have too many choices today. That's too much work for them. So we need to lay out the store in a way that's convenient and intuitive for them. Also, we can use that market basket information for cross promotions. So maybe frozen is down, but what do people tend to buy with frozen? What's a hot category people tend to buy with frozen? We can promote those together. We can segment stores and customers. So maybe you're segmenting stores. Could be any number of things. Could be based on demand of certain types of products. Could be for price tiering. Hey, this group of stores has a Walmart and a Kroger nearby, and these don't. So you need to have different pricing strategy in different stores. And then we're starting to work on targeted marketing communication. So maybe we're going to target an incentive to a household that tends to switch a lot, or is loyal, or is not loyal, etc. So really targeting them with the right incentive for them. And then more down the road, this is more of on our kind of our midterm roadmap, I would say. We're very good at ConAgra, I think mostly in the industry, at looking at ROI, so return on investment, right? What was our volume and profit in the short term? We're not so good at looking at longer term, and we're not so good at looking at, hey, your ROI may have only been a 0.3, but you really got this message across to your key consumer target, and that's going to bear long-term dividends. So that's something that with these big data sets we can do, we couldn't do in the past. Enhanced marketing mix, we do marketing mix off the store level data, but there are ways to enhance that if you've got a huge data set with like a shopper marketing data set for that retailer. I mentioned long-term marketing impacts, and then also the concept of customer lifetime value. So when you market to certain households and they buy, they respond to that, now you've brought them into the franchise, hopefully with advertising, for example, they're going to keep coming back, and so you've just increased the long-term value of your franchise by getting those consumers to come back more and more, increase lifetime value. So again, back to where we started and kind of how we thought about building this capability. So it was all about people first. So the options really we thought about were, hey, we can hire somebody who already knows how to do this stuff. We can go out and approach a supplier. There's a lot of suppliers out here who do this kind of work and pay them to do all this analysis for us. Or we can just kind of start from scratch and figure out these skills ourselves, do the research, start learning these tools like SQL and these big server databases and things like that. So what we really decided to do was, we wanted to get the right hire. We wanted to bring somebody in internally. So we needed somebody, first of all, with a mix of IT and business knowledge. There is a pretty good amount of IT to this job. And by the way, Tim Taylor is our Director of Advanced Data Mining and Analysis, and he really shows this every day, having both the business knowledge and the data mining skills to bring value out of that. We wanted somebody with really the experience with the transaction level data. Need to be able to create visualizations with the data. So we take this data and we can't just dump it to our retail customers, right? We want to give them something that's very useful. So we create tools, visualizations that they can take and keep and access the data. For example, maybe it's affinities for cross promotion where they can very easily see which categories go together, something like that. And then finally, the right hire for us was really somebody who is both a data and a technology enthusiast. Because there's both aspects to this job. You got to know the tech, and you also have to be able to really manipulate the data in a way that's useful, not just move numbers around. So for us, again, the right pieces were Advanced Data Mining and Analysis Director, which is Tim. And the great thing about our situation is we could bring that person in, and we already had people who know statistics. We've got people with PhDs or people with masters in statistics, so they know how to do the advanced modeling. And so now we've got another component to that. We can work with our data mining person, mine the data, also pull out the data to do various forms of modeling on it. As I mentioned before, one thing that was really critical was partnering with our IT group. They didn't really have a big data strategy, so it was all about getting with them, understanding what they were thinking, kind of comparing notes, and getting started on the journey. In some companies, IT is more of a profit center. Hey, we'll do this for you, it's going to cost you $1 million. At ConAgra, they're really there to help us. They really partnered with us to move things along. What IT wants to know is you kind of start to engage on this. What they wanted in our case is, how are we going to store the data? What are the data requirements? What does your query speed need to be? What kind of security? All these were critical questions as we kind of started on the path and figured out what systems we needed. And they're really our best friends. So really for us, again, it was great timing. They were just starting to think about big data. They really help us understand what we can do, what we can't do, how to accomplish our goals, and really working together with us to get the right system. So we spent quite a bit of time thinking about what kind of servers we needed, working with different data supply companies who could host the data, and we did some trials and kind of figured out what worked best for us. In terms of thinking about those technology questions, first of all, who's going to load and clean the data? Is it going to be local or in the cloud, specialized vendor? Again, we talked to several companies, we did trials, we really figured out what worked. For us, it ended up being going back in an internal server was the best solution. And then wrangling and manipulate the data. So Tim is definitely an expert in SQL. We use SQL and we use in some internal storage and servers that we have to house the data and manipulate it. You need the right statistical software. We use a variety of different stat software from SAS, Statistica, R, and Jump. We're pretty flexible on our team. Whatever somebody's comfortable with and wants to use is what we'll let them use to be as productive as possible. And then there's some coding involved, VBNet and C, or some of the other tools we use to access the data. Then visualizing the data. Visualizing the data is really critical not only for internal communication, but also communication with the retailers. So we like to create tools that they can keep, very easy to point, click, and visualize the data in different ways to get the insights out of. And here's kind of a list of some of the what we call these modules or things that we do. I talked a little bit before about some of the things we're doing today. These are other things that we do that really are kind of our wheelhouse right now in terms of what we can go out and produce quickly. So things like the purchase affinities, the store layouts, look at outer stock opportunities, demand clustering based on the stores and where the consumption is. All these things we can take to the retailers and do today. Also, we think about store clustering. So here's just a good example of store clustering. So, we were clustering stores based on where the bigger competition was and where we needed to focus on maybe some price tiering. It doesn't always line up by geography, right? Sometimes you've got stores that may fit in a cluster that aren't the same geography, so it's critical to do the right modeling and understand that. And then affinities, so bundling opportunities. I talked about the cross promotion. So single serve frozen meals are down. So what do we do about that? Well, here's some categories. When people buy single serve frozen meals, they tend to buy these other categories. So we can promote those together or shelf them together. And then department flow. So this is also based on affinities and store layouts. So what products get bought together? Example, drinkable yogurt and yogurt. That makes sense. They're bought together. They need to be shelved next to each other. Something like eggs and desserts. Well, they're on the same aisle, but they don't need to be right next to each other. So for you guys, so how you can succeed, we think about the skill sets that we're looking for out of graduates. Embracing different data sets, learning how to manipulate the data is critical, and really finding the right analytical approach. There's no cookie cutter approach. There's a lot of different ways to do these things. Tell a story. Tell a story is always very important. People aren't going to remember the data unless you're telling a story with it. And intellectual curiosity is critical for our team, always asking different questions and looking at different angles. So with that, I'll pass it back to Bob.
Thanks, Chris. I think. So I hope I gave you a little flavor of what we're doing in terms of building our capabilities for this piece. We think it's a big challenge. This is news-based. There are no right answers. We were talking earlier, we were having dinner. I mean, we may have 10 questions and there's 20 ways to get to each answer in that piece. It is a lot of science behind what we do, but a lot of it is art too in that piece in terms of what's the right data I need. I mean, 10 years ago, maybe the data was a challenge. Getting to the data was more difficult. That's not a challenge any longer, right? We have the tools, we have the data. Those are really enablers. They're not the end result of what we do. At the end of the day, we have to bring compelling insights to the customer to influence their behavior and their decisions. And very often, whether it's a customer like Walmart, you'll be meeting with one buyer that you need to influence that influences $1 billion of your business on that piece. And you've got to be able to show them, tell a story to them on why making this change is going to be good for them, their business, their results, their career, even at the end of the day. Because that's what you're waiting. They have lots of people trying to influence them, lots of companies just like us that are telling them lots of different things. We have to make sure we're confident in the facts. We have to make sure the facts lead us to the right story and then makes it easy for them to execute. So it's not just about bringing in data. In fact, very often the presentation, you saw this presentation today, there's lots of pictures and visuals, some lines and comments. It's not so different than the analysis we bring a customer, right? We're painting them a picture, a path to follow on that piece. And we'll pull out data when we need. So we have tools to help us do that. But it really is giving them a recommendation that they believe in. I tell my team, I ask my people who work for me, I say, what are we selling to the customer? Or we're selling, Chef Boyardee. We're selling pies. I said, not my team. That's the sales folks that are selling that. I said, what are we doing? And at the end of the day, they're like, I'm not sure what we're doing. I tell them always, you're selling trust. They're not going to go back and pull the data. So if I'm talking to a buyer at Kroger, they're not going to go back and check any of the data we pulled. They're not going to dig into their database. They're buying from us the belief that I can trust you as an individual. You're confident in the work you've done, the quality of the work you've done. And typically you have a half hour to sell them on that. right? So the skills are technical in some nature, but also relationship building with them, trust building, and being compelling when you're delivering that story. And those are the skills that when you bring them all together, I think that brings success with our customers in that piece. At the end of the day, we want to help them grow their business, and we want to certainly grow ours. That's why we've invested big in this area. But we also want to help them satisfy their shoppers. We do believe that understanding that real behavior that happens in the stores and then using that to make better decisions, at the end of the day, we'll have shoppers be happier. They'll have the product on the shelf they want. They'll be in the right store they shop at. Chris showed briefly a map on that piece. Not all stores are created equal. And I can tell you, I think about this market right here in Dallas. I know that the stores up in Frisco where I live, they're mainly family-driven, a lot of large baskets. I know the stores in Greenville off of North Dallas are very different in terms of what they sell. But if Kroger puts the same products in all those stores, or averages the two stores together and puts those products they think in there, they won't be successful at all, right? No one will be happy. So at the end of the day, we're trying to make their shoppers happier, and then happy shoppers hopefully come back to those stores more often or are more loyal to those retailers that do a good job with it. But it is a journey for us in this piece. Our journey forward is how do we get more customers. So we've got several customers in this last year that have opened up and shared with us. They've been more enthusiastic than we thought they would be. It's still been a challenge. So just because we've got somebody that's the head of merchandising on board, excited about it, they've still got to get their IT folks aligned, right, with sharing the data and the information with us. They've got to get their operations guys aligned on that piece. So it's still challenging. We think that us doing this in a way that's differentiating from our competition will help us be more successful than other companies would be calling on them that piece. And we think this analytics piece is a big part of that journey and that success for us. We're continuing to develop the toolbox. I said we've learned a lot this last year. We're adding more jobs to Tim's team on that piece. The company continues to believe that analytics are a big investment all the way up to my boss, the CEO of the company. So we're going to continue to try to invest in this area and really hopefully spread out our influence from a handful of customers today to 20, 30, 40 customers tomorrow on that piece. And we really want to be a leader, and that's why I think our partnership with the program here and Alex and the team, it's been, how many years? 4 years?
Almost, yeah.
Almost 4 years. We find this, hopefully you find this somewhat interesting and beneficial. We also find it beneficial to learn from what's going on, what you're learning, what are the needs out there, what are the skills. All of us have been in the business for 10, 15, 20 plus years like myself. Things have changed, and we want to continue to have an opportunity to network and learn from other folks that are learning new emerging things out there. So we see a lot of benefit in coming out to a school like this, learning from what the students are doing, the ideas. We're excited about the competition that's coming up next. Hopefully there'll be some ideas we have never thought of on that piece. And I think that's the benefit to us in this piece. We want to be a leader as a company. We want to be recognized as that. ConAgra is the third largest food company. Our goal is to be at least third or be hopefully first in the next couple of years in terms of our reputation with our customers, the value we bring to them in growing their business. And we think relationships like the one with UTD help us get there. I want to push the envelope. We don't know where the future is going to lead. We know what we're doing today. We think there will be all kinds of new things in 12 months from now that we never even imagined in terms of what we're doing, bringing different data sets together in new ways. We know the technology and the tools will continue to evolve and change on that piece. We don't want to be on the front edge of that. We don't want to be a company that's following and lagging behind on that piece. So our goal is to be the best in the business.